This episode contains material that may be triggering to some individuals. Please check the show notes for more information and be mindful of your own mental health and comfort levels. Before we get to today's episode, I wanted to take a moment and let you know all about the extras you can enjoy when you become a Quiet Connection Patreon member. Not only will you have access to our entire catalog of episodes ad-free, you can also listen to exclusive bonus episodes. And for only $5, you can even get a monthly handwritten note from me, along with stickers, magnets, and other handmade goodies. Consider becoming a Patreon member today and help continue the fight to end the stigma surrounding postpartum mental health disorders. Welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. This week, I'm speaking with Nancy, a motivated businesswoman and dedicated mom. After experiencing postpartum psychosis, she founded Anamav Postnatal Care, a service that supports new parents in their postpartum journey. Nancy addresses the shortcomings and lack of compassion in the healthcare system before and after the birth of her first child. She is committed to empowering birthing people to prevent similar issues in the future. Here's Nancy. Hello, today I'm here with Nancy. Nancy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to chat with you. Nancy and I met through social media, almost met in real life one time, but one of these days we're crossing our fingers. Nancy, I say this to all my guests. I love that I've been able to get to know you through social media, but what my guests want to know is if you could tell us a little bit about who you are and who you were before you were a mom.
For sure. So thanks so much for having me, by the way. I'm really excited to be here. But I am a accountant turned postpartum doula and a business owner now. So I wear several different hats. I'm also a mom of 2 young kids, a wife, daughter, friend, all of those things. And of course, just my own person and trying to hold on to that identity, which you touched upon. Who was I before I became a mom? I used to work pretty hard. I would say I still work pretty hard, but I worked quite a bit. I was very ambitious and career driven. I worked hard, partied hard, really enjoyed travel. I like to dance, which I still do. I was pretty social. I definitely don't see or get to talk to my friends as much now at this stage of life, but lots of different things.
Yeah, you were living your best life, it sounds like. Yeah, and when you said, like, I don't get to see my friends as much, I immediately saw that meme of, like, mom friends who are like, I'll see you in 6 to 12 months and I'll probably cancel. Like,
very accurate.
You're also doing some pretty amazing things in the world of perinatal mental health, which we will absolutely dive into. But I just wanted to mention it, and because it's so cool, and it's so cool to watch it evolve through Instagram and whatnot. And that is called Anamav. Am I saying it correctly?
Anamav, yeah.
Anamav. And yeah, we will definitely get into that. But I would love to sort of, again, start from the beginning. I ask this of all of my guests, and at this point it seems so trivial, but it tells me a lot. Did you always envision yourself being a parent?
Not always. So, as I mentioned, I was fairly career driven. I feel like I still am, but in different ways. And at the time, my husband and I worked together. That's how we met. And there was a period of time when we were, friends and colleagues, and we hadn't started dating yet. And I would tell him, like, I'm an accountant. So I was at a firm, and I was like, I want to make partner in like X number of years. And this is my dream and goal. And I don't have time for kids.
Yeah.
And he would always tell me, you're going to have kids. Like, he was just so sure of it and confident. And like, I don't know, I think that's pretty cute that like we weren't even dating at the time. And but yeah, not always. I know there was definitely a period of time where I was scared, especially to have a daughter, given all the hell that I put my parents through.
Yeah, I feel that.
My mom is just waiting for the time to come when my daughter does the same to me.
How old are your little ones?
She's turning 4 in a few days.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, on Thanksgiving here. And my son is 17 months. So I am
Okay.
very much in the thick of it.
Yeah, you really are. So you didn't always picture yourself being a parent, which I definitely didn't either. When did that sort of shift for you? When did kids start becoming more of a priority?
When I started dating my husband, I think it
Yeah.
was about, yeah, like who can I actually picture this family, right? And yeah, I brought kids up on our first date, which he still
How did that go?
he I mean, we already knew each other at this point, right? Like we had been working together for a while. So yeah, on our first date, my husband's Italian and I'm Indian. So whatever, we were on this date and I was like, I just randomly blurted out, "Are we gonna have mixed race babies?" And I was like and he was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." But obviously he's fine with the crazy and we're married. So he
I love that.
accepted it in its entirety.
Oh my God. I love that. I love that. I can absolutely picture that. Um, so talk to me about that journey. Like when you guys started planning to have a family, what did that look like for you guys?
Oh, we certainly did not start planning to have a family.
Oh.
I got pregnant on my honeymoon.
Oh my gosh.
It was
Happy
not a
honeymoon.
conversation. It was not a conversation we had had. Obviously we knew, like, when we got married that we wanted to have children at some point, but it was definitely not when I got pregnant. Yeah, I will be honest, I spent the entire day crying.
Yeah. It's a big shock.
Yeah, I was not ready. I didn't go to work that day. Like we had just come back from our honeymoon when I did I mean, it was, yeah, I guess a few weeks after when we did when I did the test, like I just did it and I didn't believe that it was true. Like I'm the type of person, I literally called the number on the back of the pregnancy test and was like, what are the chances that this is wrong? And I was like, no, I don't believe you. And I went to go do a blood test with the doctor to confirm. And at this point, I still hadn't told my husband. So I went to the doctor and I did the blood test. And then I showed up at my husband's office and told him to come downstairs. And he knows me so well. He was literally like, "Are you pregnant?"
Oh my God.
I was like, "Just be quiet and come downstairs." So he came and I showed him like a picture of my test, my pregnancy test. And I was like, "What is this?" Like, obviously it's all his fault, right? And then, yeah, I went to the doctor. I got prenatal vitamins. I was just sitting there in the office, just crying the whole time, honestly. And I was wearing I still remember this day, obviously, right? And I was wearing a hoodie and I had my hair tied up in a bun and they probably thought I was like a teenager. Like I hadn't gained any of my pregnancy weight at this point. So I was just sitting there and they thought it was like a teen pregnancy or something. Like I had no partner. They're like, "Are you okay?" And then even the doctor was like, "Do you want to talk about your options?" I was like, "What do you mean?" That was quite a day. It was a very memorable day.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, even if you are preparing to have a family, I think that reaction to the test is different for everybody. But it's scary. It's overwhelming.
And we had so many trips planned that year. And I was just like, oh my God, all my travel plans are out the window. We didn't get to enjoy our time being married before having a kid. But then you know what? Everybody's travel plans got ruined that year. It was 2020.
Yeah, it was 2020.
I found out in February and COVID hit in March. So
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, things were crazy. You were in Canada. The borders shut down. I will never forget the day they shut the borders down. This is not related whatsoever, but I was supposed to go to a Harry Styles concert in Montreal. I couldn't go, but I didn't get COVID, so that whatever. Anyway, back to you. You find out you're pregnant. It wasn't necessarily the way you envisioned it. How did that affect your experience of pregnancy?
It was just that first day that was hard. Yeah, it definitely got better. That was the only day I really truly cried about it and I was upset about it. But then I very quickly started getting excited and especially as I mentioned, like with COVID hitting, it was almost like a blessing that I could stay home and I could work from home during my nausea and whatever else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did enjoy being pregnant, like feeling those kicks. And I really did enjoy my pregnancy. It wasn't too bad. It was healthy. And yeah, I was excited. Like we were having a child and I found out it was a girl and I really wanted a girl. So that was nice.
Yeah.
I wanted a girl first. So I got that one.
Yeah.
And then just, yeah, setting up our house, getting all the things ready. Yeah, taking a bunch of courses, planning it out. I'm very much a planner. So I spent quite a bit of time prepping for labor and birth and newborn care. And I did a hypnobirthing class because I was really set on not getting an epidural. So I planned out all these things, but I did not certainly spend enough time planning for postpartum.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna bring that up, is that you did all this prep and you were preparing yourself as much as you could, but I don't really feel like there is any or enough preparation in terms of the postpartum period. And for you especially, that did not look the way that you anticipated.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Not at all. Yeah, we can talk about that. I mean, it's not an easy thing to talk about, but I have done it enough now to get into it. But I'm worried if we get into it too much that there will be some tears, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah, and this is all at your pace. So
yeah, we can certainly talk about it. I mean, I share my story very openly, but so it's usually brief. So
yeah,
let's
fine.
see how it goes. But I do want to get into detail just to, share more and increase awareness, and that's why we're here. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I experienced postpartum psychosis, as you know, and I was diagnosed just a week in. I believe the primary factor is sleep deprivation. So by the time I ended up in the ER, I hadn't slept for about a week, like at all, and I had started hallucinating. Where should we start? I feel like we need to discuss like the events leading up to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can start with my birth, I guess. So as I mentioned, I had taken this hypnobirthing course, right? So I just was so determined to make birth this like magical and natural process. And I don't know, that's just how I wanted it to be. And I had all these, like, read all these things and heard about all this stuff about the downsides of getting an epidural and the risks and this and that. And I just felt like it was something I could do. And, me being someone that enjoys a challenge, like this is the challenge that I decided to take on. So yeah, I did all this prep and I went into labor. I was 9 days late, by the way. So my daughter took her sweet time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not excited about that part, but yeah, so I started to have labor at home. And I was doing great, like managing fine and, really having a positive mindset. But I had to go into the hospital because I was GBS positive and they wanted me to come in because since I was late, I had an ultrasound already scheduled. And I was like, guys, I'm going to be coming later tonight anyways because I'm in labor. Like for sure, I'll be coming. And they said, no, come now. So I went to the hospital earlier and then I wanted to. And that's really when things started like going downhill. I mean, I couldn't keep the same headspace and mindset in the hospital environment that I had at home. So obviously this was like prime pandemic time, right? It was October 2020. And yeah, I was in triage and they didn't have a room for me because there was no rooms available. So I labored in triage from 4 p.m. to like 2 a.m.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I'm in this tiny little stall with just a curtain, like there's no doors. I can hear all the other women coming and going and screaming. And I had like all these bags packed with like a vision board and like my yoga ball and this and that. And I had envisioned like having this space to myself that's like dark and quiet and, calm and I can try to manage on my own. And I couldn't do any of that. Like I was like in this little stall almost, right? So that was not great. And I wasn't progressing fast enough according to the hospital standard.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, according to what they consider fast. But yeah, like it was taking quite a long time and I wasn't really dilating much. And they had done a stretch and sweep, which I did not ask for. Yeah. And so my contractions got worse after that. And I really was in a lot of pain. And I had reached the point where I was throwing up and uncontrollably shaking for a few hours. And the nurse was basically like, okay, you're going to be passing out soon. Like, you need to get an epidural. So, yeah, I did at that point. So this was around 2 a.m. And it kicked in immediately. And like all the physical pain stopped for the most part. But I was just in shock. So even though, my body was no longer feeling it, my mind was just racing and I just couldn't believe that I had to take it. And I felt like a failure. So in those moments, she didn't arrive for like another 10 hours after that. I had a pretty long labor. So she showed up around noon. And yeah, I lay there like awake for 10 hours, even though I obviously should have been resting and sleeping. And I couldn't believe like what had happened. And yeah, it was just all so much. So my delivery went fine. She was healthy. I was healthy. We got discharged like within 24 hours. And yeah, it was nuts. It was so fast. And in those 24 hours, like after giving birth, we were supposed to obviously be resting, right? And the people just kept coming in every hour, 2 hours, check on her, check on me, do this, do that, tell us this, like give us pamphlets on mental health, give us like, on like support, things that obviously papers that just got lost. And yeah, like we got zero rest in those 24 hours. I had zero rest in the past 2 days of like labor, right? And all of that. So by the time I came home, it had already been like 3 days that I hadn't rested. I come home, we weren't planning to have my mom there right away because my husband was off, but we realized that we were already exhausted and we now had to take care of our newborn. So we called her at 5 a.m. Like, no joke. We tried the first night and like by 5 a.m. we were both so exhausted. We called her to come over. She came and she stayed with us then. And so my husband, my mom, and me took turns, basically almost like shifts, to take care of my daughter. But I was breastfeeding every like 2 to 3 hours. So I was on basically every shift.
Yeah.
But in between my feeds, I was supposed to be like napping or resting. But I just could not turn off my brain. Like, I don't know what it was. Even though I was so exhausted, I couldn't go to sleep no matter what. And they kept telling me, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. But I just didn't. It's not like I didn't trust, like it's my husband and my mom, like you would think that I trust them. And it's not like I had any safety concerns for her or anything like that. But I just wanted to know what they were doing. And like, I wanted to see and make sure she was okay. And still like, couldn't believe that I had to get an epidural and this and that. And I also had a pretty bad tear, I didn't mention. I was like, I had a bad tear, I like 2nd degree, I had hemorrhoids, and I was in a lot of physical discomfort as well. So that definitely wasn't helping. And yeah, so this went on for 4 days. And on the 4th day, I started to have hallucinations, like the 4th day being home. So I won't get into details of what they were, but I had quite a few on this one day on October 19th. And I was sitting on the couch holding my daughter, and my mom started to come towards me to take her. And she's like, you need to go nap. So hand her over to me. And I told my mom, if you take one more step towards me, I'm calling 911. And she didn't believe me because I've never acted like this before. She didn't take me seriously. And I was like, I'm serious. I called my dad first. And my dad, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know. Obviously, at this point, I don't remember what he said exactly. But I told him that I was going to call 911. He had no idea what I was talking about, right? And then I hung up and then I called 911. And I said, my mom is trying to take my baby from me. This is what I told them. Yeah. So we live in a pretty safe country, right? So, like 3 cop cars showed up at my house immediately, and and my husband was upstairs taking a nap at this time. So I'm holding my daughter on the couch. My mom goes and wakes him up and said, Nancy called 911. And he's like, what the hell's going on? He comes down, he takes like my daughter and he's holding her, and the cops are coming in, and they spent an hour interrogating the 3 of us. And like by this point, my dad also showed up. So 4 of us, and they interrogated us each like one by one to find out what was going on. And then by the end of that, they concluded that I was not okay. And they took me to the hospital in an ambulance. And I still remember that ambulance ride. I was so confused because I was like, why am I being taken away? Like, I called the police and told them to take my mom away. She's the one that, should be going somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I went, and I went alone because my mom was with my dad, my husband was with my daughter. And it's because my mom and dad went to go to Shoppers, to like the pharmacy, to pick up bottles and formula because we had nothing at home. Because
Okay.
I was supposed to be breastfeeding exclusively for a year. So we had done zero prep for any other like plan, you know? So they went to go urgently buy things to be able to feed my daughter. And he was at home with her. So I went alone to the hospital. And I was sitting there, like on a stretcher in the hallway. And the ER was packed because of COVID again. And I was sitting there for 7 hours on the stretcher. And they had taken all of my belongings, including my cell phone. They took my wedding ring. Yeah, they took everything. And they put it away. And like my shoes. So I was barefoot. No one gave me like slippers or anything. And at this point, like I was convinced that I was dead or dreaming. Like I didn't think this was real anymore. So I was walking around. I went to the bathroom. Like I didn't wash my hands because I was like, oh, this is just a dream or I'm dead. Like COVID doesn't matter. I don't need to wash my hands. I still remember this. And I was just walking around barefoot in this hospital. My gowns were soaked. I had to like change my gowns a few times because I was bleeding. I don't know. I don't remember if anyone gave me any pads. I was soaking through my gowns with like my milk. I was so engorged, right?
Yeah.
Because I had been feeding her the past 5 days. And yeah, like no one was telling me what was going on. And I was in this state for like 7 hours. And I was just staring at the clock, just like trying to get out of this like limbo, right?
Yeah.
And I remember my blood pressure was being checked quite a bit. So finally, my dad showed up. And I asked him, like, is this real? And he said, yeah, you're in the hospital, blah, blah, blah. He's telling me what happened. So then me and my dad met with a few psychiatrists and they asked us so many questions and they really could not figure out what was going on. Like they weren't familiar with it. They didn't know what to do. So they said I think they said that they thought it was postpartum psychosis. And I don't know if they, at this point, like I don't honestly, like obviously the memories are not great. They're pretty fuzzy.
Yeah.
Definitely the second time I ended up in the hospital, which I'll mention, they did say I was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis, but I don't know if I was the first visit. And they sent me home with a prescription for some sleeping pills.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Like listeners can't see my face right now, but like, holy shit, did they fail you?
Yep. So they sent me home with some sleeping pills. And I, like I mentioned, am Indian, and we definitely have a lot of stigma around mental health. And like, you know, many of the older generation like don't even believe that it's a real thing. So I was not taken to the pharmacy and no one picked up these pills for me even.
God, Nancy.
And I wasn't driving at this time. I was like in a lot of physical pain. I was like being driven. So yeah, I went home. My parents took me to their house and further separated me from my daughter because they were like, you need to rest. And I'm an only child, by the way, so they were super protective during this time.
Yeah.
And so I was at their house and I tried to sleep. I was like trying to pump and like send milk to my daughter and like figuring out how to use my pump because I hadn't tried it yet. Yeah, maybe I got like a handful of hours of sleep for like 2 nights. And so I went back home the third day, and I was like shaking. I had hypertension. So they checked my blood pressure was over 200. Like the machine was not reading it. My heart rate was over 200. I don't know what was going on. Like everything was showing up physically, right? And I still like mentally, I don't know if I was seeing things still, or I don't know what was going on. Like I definitely didn't feel normal. My senses were all like messed up. And so this time my family called the ER instead of me, and they thought that I was going to go back to a maternity ward because I had just obviously like had a baby, and they thought that they were sending me to like a legitimate place that was set up to take care of me. Yeah. And my husband thought that he would be allowed to stay with me, so he packed a bag and he went with me. So this time he stayed with me in the ER. My daughter was being taken care of by like both sets of grandparents, right? And this point they were like bottle feeding her. And thankfully, like she was fine throughout all of this and had no idea, of course, what was going on.
Yeah.
Except that I wasn't around. Like that was obviously, I'm sure, also, you know, tough on her. But again, waiting in the ER for like whatever, 7 hours, 9 hours, like who knows? You're just sitting around. I was getting pretty pissed. I think I punched a wall. My husband was like, don't do that. Don't do
that, please.
Don't make things worse.
Oh my God.
And So that, and then at that point, I do remember I was certainly hearing things. Like I kept hearing things and thinking that I was hearing my daughter's name, or like I don't know what else. Like I kept saying, "Oh, I'm seeing all these signs. I'm hearing signs," and I don't know what the hell I was talking about. And then, yeah, finally, they came and told me they're gonna admit me to the psych ward. And this was the hospital that not the one that I went to the ER in first, where I should have gone. Because when the ambulance came to pick me up, they said, "Hey, we called like the first hospital I was at a few days ago and they have a room ready for you. So let's go there." And I said, "No, I want to go to this other hospital where I gave birth because my OBGYN is there and I feel like he'll be able to take care of me or help me or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about how that OBGYN never came to see me once in my 7-day stay. And I was like one floor away from him. So I went to this hospital and they came and told me that I was going to get admitted and my husband could not stay with me. So we were not prepared for that, right? Like I was completely shocked. And they thought I was going to like a maternity ward, but I was going to a psych ward. And so I said bye to him and they took me upstairs and they put me in isolation and I was on suicide watch.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the isolation was related to COVID or related to, like, at this point, I have no idea if it was like because of my mental health or because of COVID. Like, who even knows what was going on, right? And so I was there by myself in this room and I was being recorded. Like, there was a camera and there was a window. So I had zero privacy. And I was pumping at this time, like trying to pump for my daughter. And yeah, the nurses were so busy taking care of these other people that were much higher priority because they were trying to harm themselves or other people, and like they didn't know what to do with me. I was asking for pads, I was asking for like my mesh undies and asking for this and like special foods or prune juice for like, being able to use the bathroom or whatever, and they just could not care for me the way I needed care at that time. No one was even helping me like move around. I could barely get out of the bed by myself. One of the good things of staying at the hospital was that it did force me to move, and I did recover in a matter of like a few weeks physically, but obviously not mentally. So every day I was seen by a psychiatrist and I asked him a bunch of questions and he like asked me a bunch of questions, and we just every day he kept me there, and I didn't realize like I was being kept there. Like I realized when I was there and talking to him, but every day like he got to decide if I got to go home or not, which was insane. I just couldn't believe it,
Because you were involuntarily admitted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thankfully my husband did come to visit me every day. Even though like the hospital was far and he left my daughter and, he came. We couldn't bring her because of COVID. We didn't want to risk her. Like she could have come, but we really didn't want to risk her.
Yeah.
So that was really hard. Like I FaceTimed her and it was really upsetting, but that separation was really tough on us. I did lose my milk supply because of it and I couldn't breastfeed her after that. Yeah, it was insane. The first night, I didn't mention this. So the first night that I was there, they kept telling me to sleep and I was just like in this mode that I could not. And I was so pissed and I was so confused. And I was just sitting there like talking about stuff to the camera. I still remember like, because I thought they could hear me. I found out after that there was no audio.
Yeah.
So I was just sitting there like talking to them, to the nurses, or I don't know, like, for hours and hours. And they came and they were trying to force me to take medication. So I was saying, no, like I'm not taking this.
Yeah.
And so I definitely know I didn't do anything to try to harm anyone, but I don't know, like on whose orders I never tried to like pursue this with the hospital afterwards. Well, like, I don't know, I didn't think there was any point, but 2 or 3 nurses came and physically strapped me to the bed and injected me. And I will never forget that moment because I was like, I thought I lived in a free country. Like I have never done anything to cause anyone harm, and we have rights, and I'm a professional. Like, hello, I'm like designated, I have several designations. I've never committed a crime. Like, you know what I mean? I was just in shock that this was me like being treated this way.
Yep.
All I had done was have a baby.
It's okay. It's deep. I'm with you right now. I've been there. I've been there several times. I'm there.
Okay. Carrying on.
It's okay. I
So
mean, it's not okay. What happened
it's
to you is
not.
not
It's really
okay.
not.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Not
But
just for
this,
me, like everyone that has gone
yes,
through something similar. Like it's really not okay. And that's why we're here, right?
yes, yep.
Anyways, okay, moving forward. So eventually he diagnosed me with bipolar and postpartum psychosis and this and that, and prescribed my medication, and it discharged me on the condition that I would take this medication. And I
Mm-hmm.
had follow-ups with him every week, 2 weeks, for a few months, or I guess for like five months. I was on my medication for 5 months, and I slowly weaned myself off of it against his against the psychiatrist who I hated, against
Yeah.
his whatever
Recommendations.
recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he told me I would have to be on medication my whole life, and this would likely happen again if I had more kids. This is what he fucking said to me. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to
No,
swear
you
on
can you can swear. Explicit warning. You can
Excellent.
say yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so that's what he said to me. And I'm happy to report, did not experience it again with my second last year, and did
Yeah.
not have to go on medication again or for my whole life.
Yeah.
That was nuts. I hated that label. I was like, what do you mean? And by the way, like the second I had a psychiatrist preventatively with my second, just to manage my anxiety when I was pregnant. And she was following me, and, just to have someone in case I needed medication right after giving birth. And I asked her, I'm like, hey, am I actually bipolar? And she said, no, like that was an isolated incident. And he, like these things are difficult to understand. And like no one can really, every psychiatrist has different opinions too. That was definitely one thing I struggled with. The number of doctors I had talked to, just trying to understand my condition. When I was going through it, it was nuts. Like everybody had their own opinions and what medicine should I take and this and that. And it was nuts.
It's not okay. It's
No.
not okay. I just want to take this like deep breath moment, because that's a lot. What you just shared with us is a lot. But it's real, and it is happening. It is happening, and it's not uncommon. I'm especially interested too, because a lot of women and birthing people are diagnosed with bipolar following childbirth for exactly this reason. Either a psychotic episode or severe perinatal mental health disorders. Had you had a history of mental health struggles in the past?
Nothing.
No,
Not diagnosed.
Nothing.
Like I would say I did probably have some degree of anxiety. Like stress impacts me quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Like but that would like career stress or like academic stress. Like I take things really seriously, I would say. But I was never diagnosed with anything, and I never had to like take medication.
So when this was happening to you, and you definitely like alluded to it, you had absolutely no idea what was going on. You didn't know what the hell.
I knew nothing. And also this whole experience, like childbirth, knock on wood, I've been fortunate enough to have a healthy life up to this point. Childbirth was the first time I was admitted to a hospital as a patient.
Wow.
Like I had never broken a bone. I hadn't gotten stitches. Nothing. Yep. So I showed up at this hospital. Like this is the first time I've worn a hospital bracelet. And, a week later, I'm admitted to a friggin' psychiatric ward.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. I think, too, it speaks to several things. One, like you said, like you're in Canada, and the healthcare system is different there than it is here in the U.S.
Yes, like more access. And
we have this idea that you have more access and access to
services
and quality care. Like here in the U.S., we have such a health and mental health crisis, like, and the disparities, especially in the birthing community, like the U.S. is horrendous when it comes to maternal mental health and death rates. So, but it's important to note that you're in Canada, where we're like, oh, well, we'll just move to Canada if things get bad. Like, it's not saying that the whole system is screwed up, but like the grass isn't always greener.
We should move to like Sweden or Malaysia.
Right? I want to go to Finland or something like that. But what you experienced, the lack of care that you were given, the lack of consistency that you were given, is appalling and not okay. especially, like, I'm envisioning you when you were talking about like bleeding through your gowns and stuff, and I'm like, and no one even thought to come to you. Like, it blows my mind.
Part of the blame is, I don't know what amount of it, but it's definitely like the pandemic, right? In general, our healthcare crisis and not having enough staff and not having enough resources and this and that. Timing was definitely not great. But regardless, like the fact that there aren't spaces available specifically for women that have just had a baby and then are experiencing a mental health crisis is just, whether it's in Canada or the States, like it's ridiculous. And I know like there are samples or models in the world, right? Like the UK has these types of units.
Yes.
So
I was going to ask,
yeah.
You don't have them in Canada. Yeah. So I've had guests from the UK and from Australia who talk about mother baby units. And in the US, that's just where you go after you deliver.
Right. Like, no, we have those. Yeah. We have those, but it's not specific. It's not for when, like, going back, like in my case, right?
That's what it is outside of the North America. And so mother baby units in the UK and in Australia and countries like that are places that you go when you're having a mental health crisis, and your baby can go with you.
Which like makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And then in the US, there are only 2 inpatient psychiatric hospitals specializing in perinatal mental health in the entire country.
Illinois? Or no?
There's one in North Carolina and there's one in California. And that's it. Are there any that you know of in Canada? No.
Not that I know of right now. I mean, maybe they're being worked on in some places, but not right now, like open.
Because exactly like what you said, like they were not equipped to deal with what you were going through. And I had a very similar experience. So I just want you to know, especially because I know that it's very hard to talk about, like, you're not alone.
In the details, like briefly, it's definitely, I've talked about it several times, but getting into the details and reliving or, reimagining it is definitely challenging.
Well, and I want to acknowledge too, as we're recording this, it's October 11th. Anniversaries are hard.
Yes.
And you are approaching one. And so I don't applaud you, but I'm giving you the biggest like virtual hug right now because I know what that feels like. So for you to share now.
It's when the weather gets cold. October here typically is when it starts getting a little cooler. So I do remember like, when all of this was like in 2020, when all of this was happening, I remember coming home from the hospital and it was still kind of warm, kind of okay. But once all of this happened, and then when I started going outside again into the world, I was like, what happened? Like a full season changed.
Yeah.
And it's freezing now. Like, where are my boots? Where is my jacket?
Yes. Isn't that like, so literally, strange?
I was like in the space. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was having all of this happen to me like that first month, right after having the baby. It was insane. It was such a blur. And I went outside and I was like, oh my God, it's winter.
Yeah. And you really are. You're so motherhood and new motherhood is so isolating in and of itself. When you add a psychiatric inpatient hospital stay, that's isolation. That's the world goes on and you aren't part of it.
I remember when I got outside, my husband came to pick me up, and when I got discharged, I literally went outside and like hugged a tree. I still have that picture.
Like, oh my God. Outside. Yes. Yeah, you don't, listeners, if you've never experienced this, at least my experience 3 times in 3 separate hospitals, we didn't go outside. We weren't taken outside. And again, that's due to not having enough staffing, not having enough resources. But regardless, I kind of want to know, I feel like it's jumping around, and it's not in terms of minimizing anything. It's because I want to maximize your time. But when you considered having another child, how did this experience impact that decision?
So if I wasn't an only child, I am certain I wouldn't have wanted another one.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have done it. But because I knew what that would feel like, for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, whatever, like we have to make this happen, and I'm gonna do everything I can to not go through this experience again.
Yeah.
So I stopped working a few months earlier than my maternity leave, and I did therapy and I did yoga, and I connected with the psychiatrist to talk about the plan.
Yeah.
I interviewed a bunch of doulas and made sure that I had support at home for the first month, like every night. Even though, here it's not covered by our public healthcare system, so it was private. But that's what I chose to invest in because it was important to me, and I wanted to make sure that my sleep was protected. And then they do have a program. I don't know if anywhere in the States they have it, but we have a program called 5 Day 5 Nights.
Okay.
Where you do get to stay in the hospital after giving birth for an extra 5 nights, and you're seen by it's like part of the psychiatry team, and you're seen like every day. It is voluntary, but you have to have gone through something like this to be accepted into the program. Okay. So that I did sign up for that with my second. So I basically lined up a bunch of support and did things to manage my anxiety in the last few months before having my baby. So yeah, I mean, my husband also wanted to have multiple kids, so we talked about it, like when we were getting pregnant. We did wait, like it wasn't like immediately, obviously not immediately after. It took me, I had to recover myself first, right? I was, like I said, I was on medication for about 5 months, and until she turned like almost 2, I was not ready at all. So yeah, we wait. Their gap is like just over 2.5 years, and yeah, so I just took that time to myself to really prepare. And when he was born, so again, these psychiatrists, they wanted me to start medication during my pregnancy to like prevent it. Yep. And I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing this? Like I'm doing other things to manage my anxiety, like doing yoga and lining up support and feeling like, that I have a plan in place and I'm prepared. Why do I need to be taking medication when I'm pregnant? Because obviously, like, no matter what we say, like some amount, it is going to impact the baby to some degree. Like, it's something that's going into my body, even if it's very low risk. So yeah, so I didn't take it during pregnancy. And then they're like, okay, take it immediately after having your baby. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Really, I'm not a very like, easygoing patient. So I told them, I promise I will tell you and take medication as soon as we have the slightest symptom of anything, that I can't fall asleep or whatever it is, or anxiety or whatever, racing thoughts, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so they, like, the psychiatrist agreed. And so I was part of this extra 5 nights I stayed in the hospital, and they monitored me every day. The best part of the program was that they did take my baby at night. Mm-hmm. And I got a solid like 6-7 hours of sleep.
That's
but
huge.
They did encourage breastfeeding and pumping, so I was doing that. So I would just pump enough during the day so that they could feed him at night when I wasn't with them. So, and they, again, like, they were convinced that I had to use formula. Like, I don't know what is the deal with some practitioners in some hospitals, but they're like, it's okay. Like, if you have to use formula, like, get on board, blah, blah, blah. I was like, why? Like, if I'm doing it, just let me do what I'm doing. If this is what's going to help me manage my anxiety, like, just let me do it. I didn't get the opportunity to with my first. I want to try with my second, right? Like, that was fully taken away from me. So anyway, so I pumped like those 5 days, and I fed him, and he was fine, and we didn't end up using formula. So obviously I was very happy about that. Yeah. I did eventually start after when he had his own issues with breastfeeding and whatever. Like, we're not going to get into it, but I did feed him enough to feel good about it. And, it was obviously more than I was able to with my daughter. So I was still happy with our decisions. So yeah. So then nothing happened in the hospital those 5 days. I went home. I had doulas at my house for a month. It was fabulous. And some of those doulas are actually on our team now at Anamav. Which we'll
is
get
so
into,
cool.
Which is amazing. Yeah, even my lactation consultant from the hospital, like that 5 day 5 night program, The one that was supporting me, she was amazing. She would come and check on me every day. She's also one of our lactation consultants. So amazing to have them join us. But yeah, so I just, had all this support and it was wonderful. Like nothing happened. After the 1 month was up, I had my usual, that every new parent faces, like the 5-6 hours at night that I'm awake in between feeds and this and that. But I just very quickly decided to switch to only bottle feeding at night and, to make sure that I get rest, and just did what I needed to do to really protect my mental health and my sleep.
Yeah. I think I want to highlight for listeners that this is a really good example of the whole idea that every birth is different. Every birth experience is different. And just because you go through a perinatal mental health disorder through one pregnancy, it doesn't mean that you'll go through it in another one. You may, you're predispositioned, like that's a known thing. You may, but you are a perfect example of like, if you take steps and you are taking preventative measures and being proactive, also advocating for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, advocating for yourself is huge. Again, I don't want to feel like I'm rushing you, but I want to be respectful of your time. Before I get into Anamav, because I really want to get into that, I want to know, like, because all of this was so much and it's so much to carry, what brings you joy about being your kid's mom?
So for me, that part of everything, I never had any negativity around it. So even with everything that was happening to me with the psychosis, it was all related to me. Like I know some moms and, some parents, their psychosis can show up differently and they can have, or even like postpartum depression or anxiety, they can have negativity towards their babies. But I was thankfully not in that situation. And I always loved being her mom.
Yeah.
Even throughout all of that. Like that was the one thing that I was sure of, even though I had no idea what was going on in my head and my body and, felt like I had no control over anything. I loved her like from the beginning. So, and same with my son. So I'm really happy at least that I accepted that aspect of motherhood. I love being a mom, but there's several other aspects of motherhood that I don't enjoy, but it's never about them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like there are so many things that feel hard, like managing now, for example, the time between the two of them and like competing, which one do I prioritize when they both need me or need things, right? And then the guilt. I definitely have so much guilt all the time about like spending time with them, spending time building my business, spending time on my self-care. There's several parts of motherhood I would say that I find like challenging every day, right? Like it's been 4 years now, but there's definitely several things I find challenging, but I've never questioned like how much I love them or how I feel towards them. So I am like thankful for that.
So how did this transform this high-profile, career-oriented woman to what is now Anamav? Is it postnatal or is it?
Yeah, it's Anamav Postnatal Care.
Okay, Anamav Postnatal Care. I can't, there's so many people that I've connected with. I'm like, oh, okay, so there's Mom's Mental Health Initiative. There's blah, 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 blah. So, okay, so Anamav Postnatal. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about the vision for that and what that has become for you.
For sure. So when I was sitting in the hospital, I was like, something needs to be done about this, right? And I was so sure that I would be doing something about it at some point. But obviously, like, it wasn't then because I had to recover myself. Yeah. And then I did want to go back to my job because we knew that we wanted to have a second, I did want to go back to work, have a second child, take care of all of that. And then, hopefully be in a place where I can start supporting other women and families. So thankfully, as I mentioned with my second, I had a positive experience, and we didn't get into this, but another part of it was that the birth was easier. It was shorter. It was, I also accepted very early on that I was okay having an epidural if I needed.
Yeah, that'll make a difference.
Yeah, this time around, I was like, if I need it, I'm taking it when it's time. So yeah, that definitely helped. And I chose a different hospital, and so the team was wonderful. And they really involved me. I want to mention, they really involved me in the decision making, which I thought, and the communication was much better. So all of those things really helped me feel like I had control over my own birth, and like my experience.
Yeah.
So that I think helped as well. But yeah, getting back to your question. So during with my second, after he started sleeping better in a few months, and the second half of my maternity leave with him, I started really thinking about what I wanted to do. So initially, the idea was to open a postnatal care center, which would serve the purpose that exactly what we talked about, just having a space but it was more not for women to come back to if they're in crisis, but to prevent it in the first place. So really just having a space for like obviously the birthing person and their partner and baby to stay at after leaving the hospital when they're discharged after like 24 hours and before going home, so that they actually feel prepared for what's coming, right? So having them sleep there and have the baby sleep in a separate room if they would like, and be taken care of by qualified professionals, have their meals taken care of, receive like education and workshops, and really just know what they're doing or feel like they have a stronger foundation before they go home, especially if they're first-time parents. Even if they're second-time parents, then at least they have a dedicated space where they don't have to, like maybe one partner can stay at home with the first, right? And then mom can stay with the second. So I wanted to create this space, and I started to have conversations around it. Another big thing for me was affordability and accessibility. So, obviously for that, I would need some kind of funding and partnerships with the government. So I started working on it, but in a few months of working on this, I realized that this is like several years out, and it's a big project. So rather than continuing my accounting job for those years while I wait, I decided to shift and start with in-home care services so that I can start supporting families now.
Yep.
So that's what I did. In terms of timeline, it all happened pretty soon. I started working on my business in January and decided to launch the in-home care services in March. And then in July, I hired a team of 10.
Wow.
And then launched our services in August.
Oh my gosh.
It's been insane. Like it's been insanity these past 10 months now. It's been really, really busy, but really great. So we launched our services in August. I just recently did like a huge event, our we call it our Toronto Baby Show. And so, just really trying to spread awareness and get recognized in the community and start sharing our services with people and start getting our first set of clients.
Yeah, it's been so cool to watch this unfold. I think social media can be toxic in a lot of ways, but I have found through this community, through this club that none of us wanted to join, it's been a really beautiful way to see people like yourself like taking your experience. And I hate silver linings. So if you've listened to my show, I hate silver linings, but taking the experience that you've gone through and doing something to ensure that doesn't happen to someone else. And I think your go-getter mindset and your like high achieving mindset is working to your advantage because you're doing the damn thing.
Yeah,
like you're doing it. So I guess obviously I would love to literally chat with you forever, because that would just be amazing. But to bring it all home, what do you hope my listeners take away from your experience?
Okay. I would say two big things. One would be, prevention. So how can you prevent what happened to me from happening to you if you are expecting or planning to have a family or whatever the case, right? You can plan for postpartum. So lining up your support system, setting up your home, having important conversations with your family members to make sure everyone's on the same page and has the same expectations, knowing exactly like who is going to be doing what, especially if you have multiple children, like who's taking care of various responsibilities, who's taking care of finances, just avoiding a lot of those conflicts after. So definitely like a lot of that communication up front. If you've never heard of a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, at least having a very, very basic understanding of the symptoms and like what could happen so that you can recognize them early and get help. Yeah, I would say like spending some time during your pregnancy planning for those things, I think can really make a big difference. And then secondly, if you are currently experiencing something or you're struggling, catching it earlier and getting support early so that you can prevent it from becoming more severe, right? So reaching out to whatever healthcare provider you can connect with, or who can then connect you with the right person, right? Or anyone in your family and friends or other support system so that they can help you find the right support and the right help. One thing I didn't mention is we haven't talked about so far is that I am involved in a few nonprofit organizations as well in the perinatal mental health space. So they offer phenomenal resources. So some of them are Canadian, but one of them is Postpartum Support International, which I'm sure you're aware of. I know you are.
Yep.
They have like their helpline, right? You can call and text anytime, wherever you are, and you can get specialized support or local support for your specific circumstances. So there's just so many things that are available that you may not necessarily know about because you haven't needed to know about it, but looking for that help, I think can really make a difference long term.
Absolutely. Listeners, definitely be sure to check the show notes because all of these things, these resources, Nancy's website and social media accounts will all be tagged down there so you can follow along. But if my listeners want to follow you and follow this journey, what's the best way to do that?
Our social media for sure. Instagram is definitely where I'm most active, and it's at Anamav Postnatal. And then for more details on our services, our team, all of those things, everything we're up to, our website, you can subscribe to stay in touch and also learn more. It's anamav.ca.
And you will find that in the show notes. Nancy, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being so authentic and vulnerable and for being real and for also being an example that there is another side to PMADS. So
for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Nancy, thank you for your authenticity and transparency in sharing your story. While you don't owe it to anyone, giving us a look into your journey ensures that others out there experiencing something similar feel less alone and know that there is another side to PMADS. Listeners, please check out the show notes to learn more about Nancy, Anamav Postnatal Care, and the resources available there. You can keep up with us on Quiet Connection by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can help our community grow by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and consider sharing our episodes on social media. To share your personal journey, you can contact us through our website at quietconnectionpodcast.com or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.